Entertain a motion to approve.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Minutes are approved. Item number 1 under new business is approval of a minor public works contract with L&D Moore Contracting for installation of median islands for traffic calming improvements along Enterprise Avenue. The total is not to exceed $42,825. Brett?
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
As mentioned, engineering is looking to for approval to award a minor public works contract with L&D Moore for traffic calming improvements along Enterprise Avenue. This project's not to exceed $42,825.
We're talking about 30 days. We've been kind of planning this.
How'd it come about?
Well, neighbors, Brett can answer this.
I
but-
want to know who I need to know to
the
get some of them traffic calming
Well,
improvements.
Let me tell you,
Yes,
part of this money though is coming from the money that we had put aside for everybody's district.
Mhm.
That $500,000 a few years
Still
ago.
got some left.
I had a little money that I kind of squirreled away for this because there's a traffic problem and a speeding problem on that road that multiple neighbors have complained about. We've been looking at this for a year.
Yeah.
We've been looking at this for a year, so
Yeah.
it's, most of the money for this is still coming from my district funds.
Okay.
But ask any question you want to, my friends, whatever. Brett, tell them a little bit about what's going on too. And for our viewers at home.
This is you can kind of see on the project map up near the Lake and North River subdivision along Enterprise Avenue, right when you turn in. This is kind of what we're planning on doing, is essentially just putting in median islands to sort of deter speeding as well as encourage focus as motorists are driving through this area.
Cool.
There's-
Questions?
42 grand for the whole thing,
Mhm.
That's it.
and most of that is leftover Councilman Crow's money.
Yes, sir.
Wasn't it like, I don't remember, 130?
Motion.
Second.
$40,000, I can't remember. I promise you a high chunk of it is.
See, I did a lot of lighting with mine.
Motion is second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Item number 1 is approved. Item number 2, authorization to execute a memorandum of agreement with the Federal Aviation Administration and the Alabama State Historic Preservation Office. Jeff, welcome.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Jeff.
The next few agenda items, we talk a lot about what we're doing at the airport, and I've invited our engineer partners, Atkins Realis, the team that's involved with a lot of things that have been conducted at the airport since the mid-2000s with Atkins. Our primary engineer, Darren Duckworth, is here today. They have a lot of expertise, so depending on your questions on these next few items, they'll be available to introduce themselves and speak on anything that y'all may have interest in. This particular item is a culmination of our environmental assessment, phase 1 of the runway extension project. Through the various agencies that we coordinate with, these stipulations in the agreement says these steps will be incorporated in the construction contract. It's an agreement between the city, the State Historic Preservation Officer, and the FAA. But the stipulations in that 17-page document will be included in the general contractor's contract when we go out to bid.
Jeff, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you so much for taking my call earlier. Can you kind of explain a little bit to those who may not understand what that environmental assessment is and how it's going to impact what we do?
Yes, sir. Anytime we're using federal dollars, we have various requirements to include looking at the environmental impact. There's different categories. It could be category excluded. It could have an EA or environmentally impact statement, depending on the results of any various studies that we do. So with this particular project, the runway extension, it impacts over 100 acres. This memorandum of agreement is narrowed down to a 2-acre site that has a lot more sensitivity than the rest of the project site. So based off the response we got through the entities, this MOA looks at what the stipulations that we're going to put into our construction.
Thank you.
I'm still lost. What does the State Historic Preservation got to do with it?
So the cultural resources studies we do,
Cultural Resources Study.
they fall under the Alabama Historic Commission. We have our resident cultural resources. It's called Section 106. We coordinate a phase 1 and phase 2 cultural resources, our archaeology, identifying anything in the ground. They find artifacts. So when we do go through an excavation, if we find anything, we collect it, we do a study, and then we pass it on to the entities that are looking for that type of information.
And they're just about to, they're asking for approval to do this?
They've already done it
They've already
based
done
off the
it.
findings.
They find anything?
We did find some things.
But they've gotta be evaluated.
They gotta be, we've already evaluated those. They're worried that once we put dirt on top of the existing ground, they want us to investigate it more than just a sample. That makes sense.
Based on what was found.
Based on what was found.
Did they find any of that?
So specifically to the Oklahoma Choctaw tribe that we've been coordinating with, they want us to not just sample the area, but go ahead and do a full excavation of a 2-acre site before we put 8 feet of dirt on top of it.
Okay, now, so is this the approval to do the 2-acre site?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
During
What does it cost and who's paying for it?
No additional cost. It's already incorporated in our current agreement with Atkins Realis.
Okay.
Jeff, can I, before we vote, can I ask a question? I know you and I were talking this week, we have set, I guess, on a path to upgrade our airport several years ago, right? We have gotten grants to extend our runway. We are currently looking at ways to potentially get a new tower, to get a new, or remodeled or whatever terminal, right? I mean, I know we're searching all that, but ultimately, we're still trying to figure out, our ultimate goal with that. I mean, because in my opinion, and then I want you to chime in, we're trying to enhance the airport. I would hope to be a revenue producer, something that's at least, I would say, revenue neutral, right? I mean, as we explore options with other partners in our community, right? Potentially about the future of the airport. But ultimately, what do you see happening at the airport? I mean, on the path we're on to get to revenue neutral, where are we today as we're in February of 2025? I mean, what do you see the path we're on?
Every airport has 2 primary goals. One is to be self-sustaining, generating that revenue to get to where we don't have any support from the tax dollars that come into the city. Our second goal is to maximize the economic impact to the community. So you can be not self-sustaining, but still have significant impact in the jobs that you're able to attract for Tuscaloosa. Every airport, through a study with LDOT, has reviewed what their economic impact is. For Tuscaloosa, out of 78 airports, we rank 9th. We're very happy with how we're performing today, but we're always looking at what's the infrastructure, our policies, our leases that help attract companies to come to Tuscaloosa as we compete with other states on aerospace type jobs.
Everything can't go to Huntsville.
That's correct.
And
Alabama's
I hope everything can't go to Columbus, Mississippi either.
That's correct.
But, I mean, being in a position to capitalize on those opportunities is really what I think it's important for the taxpayers to hear that. That's what we're trying to do, correct?
Absolutely.
Another question, I'm sure you know this off the top of your head, but everybody asks me all the time about commercial service, right? I guess I would say probably our goal, one of the goals, several, right, would be to have some type of commuter service ultimately to Tuscaloosa to serve a hub like Atlanta or Memphis or Dallas or something, correct? I mean,
Yes, sir.
but you can't do that until you kind of take some of these steps, correct?
Absolutely. We've pursued what I would say enhanced connectivity for our community. We've received feedback from numerous organizations that the impact of not having ease of connectivity to Tuscaloosa impacts quality of life, impacts their ability to recruit and retain. It is a difficult path, just like with any economic development when you're trying to recruit against other communities. But based off feedback we have with various airlines, they're certain check boxes that they're looking for. Does this community have that? And we've really narrowed down that the terminal is one of the limitations that Tuscaloosa has. The community piece, the community support, we've been able to be very successful there. It moves the needle, but infrastructure is currently where our focus is at, and that's the terminal that you're referencing, and trying to look at federal funding opportunities, and then and leverage that off the community and the local support we've been able to pull.
But it is, I mean, I'm probably gonna sound like a lawyer, like I'm prosecuting a case. I don't mean to say that like this, what I'm thinking to say, but it's accurate to say that this administration, this mayor, and this council is doing everything that they can to move this airport forward toward, I mean, I hope profitability, but long-term economic growth for our whole community. Is that, what we're doing is putting us in a good position for that, correct?
Absolutely.
For those opportunities.
Absolutely. The challenge is you're always positioning ourselves to take advantage of opportunities, and every year for as long as we've been doing this, certain opportunities have presented themselves at different times. Going back to 2019, 2020, prior to COVID, we had some very successful projects coming online. We were very excited with the progress that we were able to make at that. And sometimes things happen and it may set you back, but we continue to use feedback based off the grant opportunities, community support, and just waiting for what the industry will provide. We maintain those relationships. And again, the choke point is the terminal. That's the feedback. They're saying they need to have the proper space to do the things they need to do. And then we'll reassess where we're at once we're past that moment.
Thanks for letting me go down that rabbit trail for a second. Any other questions from committee members? And if not, I'd entertain a motion to approve item 1.
So, I have a question. Jeff, is this, we're voting on these three separately, correct?
Yes, sir.
Could I understand, please, Jeff, before we vote, what is the connectivity between these three? I finally, I get number one. We did a survey, we found some stuff at the request of the Choctaw Nation. We said, okay, there's 2 acres, we'll really go in depth and do a cultural, and so to do that, we need an MOA to stitch together the different players.
Right.
Okay?
That's correct.
Got it. How does this, how does these disconnect with number 2 and number 3? Does it?
No connection to number 2.
Okay.
We are doing an environmental study, but this is completely separate from this MOA.
Okay.
Again, every time we do a federal project, we kind of have to do this environmental process. So we're doing an environmental effort, but it's not connected to this MOA.
Those 2 are not
They are
related.
not connected.
What about the number 3?
The design will incorporate the stipulations from this MOA into what we have to do and telling the contractor how to build that part of the 2
Okay.
acres.
All right. Second.
Got a motion, second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Item number 2 is approved. Item number 3 is approval of amendment number 1 to work authorization for Atkins Realis to provide design and bid phase services for the cargo overflow ramp project. Jeff?
We are currently under grant for the design of this project to include an environmental study. The original scope of work that we consulted with FAA was this was a category excluded project, which means you don't have to do the full study. They do a agency review of that recommendation, and the Alabama Historic Commission came back off that coordination and says, please include a phase 1 cultural resources. That added scope of work is what this amendment reflects, is reimbursable under the grant we currently are. And once we get out of that design effort, we'll go into the construction phase.
Remind me again, the grant that we're currently, it was a federal grant we got a
This
few years ago. How much was it?
This is a bipartisan infrastructure law. It's the 5-year infrastructure bill that the Congress passed. We are allocated an allotment every year.
Every year. How much was it? Supposed to be
the allotment
total.
over the 5 years, it'll
Yeah.
accumulate to around $3.9 million. So right now, the only thing that we've executed out of that 3.9 is the design, and that's around $270,000 and change.
This money comes out of that?
This
No,
is
this is added.
this is an
Okay,
added
okay.
43,958.
Okay, questions?
I will say the response by AHC was on the basis that in the history of the airport's property, there's never been a cultural resources study on this 20-acre site. And that was kind of their reasoning of, before we construct on it, let's see what's underneath the dirt. And then any results, we'll handle it based off those findings.
When do we think that will be complete?
It is estimated that the actual collection is 200 shovel tests, is about a 3 to 5 day effort. The study and the findings report, that goes all the way out to 4 months. They do lab testings back at their office locations, and then they submit that result to the agencies, and they all get a 30-day review. So the culmination of coordinating all that's around 4 months.
So does that impact or impede the sort of the larger design?
It depends if we find anything. If we don't, then
If
we'll.
we don't, it does not.
That's correct.
If we do, it does.
We may have to
Maybe.
be more delicate in that one zone that the findings are found.
Is that compatible with the timeline we already believe we're working on?
It is. The biggest risk is if there is something significant found, it could delay when we go out to bid. And we have to get certain grants executed by certain dates. We won't know what those timelines are until we get the results back from this phase 1.
And that'll be in about 4 months?
Yes, sir.
3 months, actually.
Yes, sir.
Any other questions? Entertain a motion.
So moved.
So,
Moved and seconded. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Item number 3 is approved. Item number 4 is authorization to execute a conditional work authorization for Atkins Realis to provide design and bid phase services for the runway extension project. Jeff?
Yes, sir. The environmental assessment has been going on for 17 months. We know enough, the FAA feels comfortable and has notified us to start design. We do have a deadline in later this year to have the bids for the full construction. So they want us to start the design so that we can meet that deadline,
what is the deadline?
June.
June.
Yes, sir.
Is this
The
this
first
is
part?
February, right?
Yep.
2 and 4 is 6. Okay, keep going.
So we're starting that process. We're not starting from scratch. They have been going through during the EA, formulating a lot of the data that we know to produce the bid documents. So we are going out for advertisement post the work authorization being executed with your approval. The contract amount for this work authorization is $1,568,948.71. This is currently going under audit by ALDOT and FAA, like all of our scopes of work. So this is conditional based off the results of that fee audit. It could be finished tomorrow, it could be finished in 3 weeks. We're not sure when the turnaround time is. So this contract will be not to exceed the amount that's shown here today.
Question?
And this is Realis over here.
Atkins Real, yes, sir.
Come on up. Introduce yourselves.
Yes, sir. I'm Darren Duckworth with Atkins Realis, Senior Project
Come on up
Manager.
here.
Darren Duckworth with Atkins Realis, Senior Project Manager.
Hey, welcome. Where y'all on?
We're out of all over. We got representatives here from Huntsville, Tallahassee, and Nashville today.
Cool. Have y'all done work for us before?
Yes, sir. We've been privileged to be the airport's consultant for several reselections of our 5-year multi-year contract agreements.
Anything you think we should know about this matter at hand today?
It's a tight timeline, and we're gonna have to throw a lot of staff at it to meet a very quick design.
And what happens if there is something that crops up and that 4 months is not meetable? What's and this is a joint question for you and Jeff.
Sure.
What do we do, Jeff? What happens?
We've already initiated a conversation with our FAA representatives to look at those potential scenarios. Because this grant or the funding was awarded in 23, that's the June limitation. And we've been following the process to this point, and their notification 2 weeks ago was in reference to that June deadline. So we have concerns with that. We're communicating to hopefully get an extension on that, because the EA is resulting in longer than originally intended. So we do not want to wait until May to find out of a potential risk. We are already talking with our program managers out of the airport district's office to help provide contingencies for those scenarios.
Because you don't want to lose the funding.
Absolutely.
If you don't meet that deadline. That's a little bit of money there. It's a bunch of money.
Okay.
Hopefully our government will be reasonable.
And just as a clarification, we're at this point of the project timeline for just following the process that we're required to follow. We were a little surprised when they made that notification 2 weeks ago. So we're responding and having those conversations and moving forward. Atkins is committing to that June deadline regardless, but it would be a great contingency to go ahead and get the extension. That's not normal, by the way, the extension,
Sure.
but we're having the appropriate conversations.
Sure. Any other questions? Committee members, entertain a motion to approve.
Jeff, let me say this, thank you so much again for our conversation. So moved, Mr. Chair.
Moved and seconded, all in favor say aye. Aye. Item number 4 is approved. Our next Public Projects Committee meeting will be next Tuesday, February the 18th. Is there any other business to be brought before this committee? Hearing none, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded.